Well, I have 5:30, and I'd like to welcome everyone to this presentation. My name's Joel Hicks, and I'm the chair of the Climate Action Commission. Thank you all for taking the time to participate tonight. This is actually the first public meeting dedicated to our Climate Action Commission, and tonight's really intended to do three things. Review the scope of the Climate Action Commission, provide an overview of how the climate is structured, and third, and probably most importantly, to provide information for how you can be involved with the process of building Cumberland County's climate action. First off, it's important to remember this commission is a little bit unique in several ways, because it's not intended to be a permanent committee or board, but it's chartered to carry out a very specific task that requires a wide set of skills and expertise. I'm going to discuss how the commission's been structured so as to be both agile and responsive, but also to engage widely with the Carlisle community to ensure it's a plan that the community supports and can remain an enduring and relevant guidance document for years to come. Okay, just want to kind of review what a climate action plan is, which is the ultimate product that we're structuring the commission to produce. And the plan creates a framework that documents, coordinates, measures, and adapts efforts moving forward. It describes how each action will be implemented via a timeline, financing options, and assignment of responsibilities. The Climate Action Plan creates a clear course of action to achieve our climate and sustainability goals and drives local commitment toward a clear and measurable outcome. If you look at the implementation steps on the right-hand side there for achieving our greenhouse gas reduction targets in the diagram, it's structured to get the borough through milestone 3 on that diagram, which is to develop a climate action plan. One thing you'll notice once you've read a few dozen climate action plans is that there's no real standardized approach, either in breadth and detail of the content, nor in the makeup of the community members. So Carlisle's approach, as outlined here, is somewhat ambitious in its desire to have a rather detailed plan that can take advantage of the range of expertise and tacit interest in this borough's, in this priority of our borough. Although we are confident that the structure will work, Borough Council staff may find it necessary to adjust the structure to ensure the best product, given our time constraints, which I'll talk a little bit more about. So a little bit on some background. Many of you may know for several months, starting in 2019 and running through May of 2020, Carlisle teamed up with Dickinson College's Center for Sustainability Education as part of a consortium of municipalities who participated in the local government climate action assistance program called LCAP. That was a program funded by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection through the Department of Energy's State Energy Program. And this effort resulted in establishing a baseline greenhouse gas inventory for Carlisle. This inventory, which is shown here, provides the point of reference for future planning. Perhaps most importantly, it provides where our local efforts moving forward should be focused. I am encouraged to relay that Cumberland County was selected this year to participate in the LCAP program, which gives us the potential to coordinate to meet intergovernmental objectives in the near future. The greenhouse gas inventory represents, if you look at the diagram on the right, the first significant milestone in achieving our carbon reduction commitments. And just before I exit this screen, I think it's sometimes you will hear me and others talk about greenhouse gases and carbon reductions almost synonymously. Greenhouse gases include methane, fluorocarbons, nitric oxides, and also carbon dioxide. And because carbon dioxide is by far the most abundant greenhouse gas, you'll often see the term CO2e, which represents CO2 equivalent, which simply reflects the fact we can model the effects of all greenhouse gases as if they were carbon dioxide equivalent. And so with that inventory that was briefed to council this year, we have our baseline. We've completed milestone 1. And so moving on, in July, the council finalized their climate action resolution. And the goals or climate action targets of the climate action plan are addressed by these 2 clauses. The first clause recognizes the currently existing international and state greenhouse gas reduction targets. I think equally important, the resolution calls out that the borough will commit itself to meeting or exceeding any future state, federal, or international governmental commitments. So when this resolution passed, we achieved the second milestone on the journey to meeting our reduction targets. And so we're kind of in the early throes of getting to milestone 3, which is going to be a year-long prep process. And so I'm going to highlight 4 parts of the resolution that are relevant to what we're undertaking now. So the resolution called for the formation of a climate action commission for the structure of which is not statutory, but of which council and staff evolved as follows. The executive committee is the voting membership of the Climate Action Commission and incorporates each of the 4 team leads, and you can see the teams below. In order to achieve the next clause of the resolution, that begins tonight. So we're chartered to find and appoint members throughout the community, business community, residents, academic community, and all those who are deemed necessary to develop this plan. So this will include selecting team leads and working to place volunteers in teams that are most closely related to their areas of interest. Also, part of the task of the community engagement team to meet our resolution is to make sure that the public has an opportunity to discuss and debate our strategies and recommendations. And we want to allow a full and open opportunity for the public to comment on everything we do. So finally, the resolution requires that the Climate Action Commission provide a plan, and they have 12 months to do it. So we have to hit the ground running, and that the clock will start ticking very, very soon. And at the end of the 12 months, the goal is to have that 3rd box checked and to be off and running. I want to spend the next time just kind of talking about overall functions of the team. So you probably are wondering, what would I potentially be doing? And these are really high level sort of overviews of how right now we envision the teams to function. And part of the philosophy here was that we really wanted to make sure people's skills and time were directed in an effort that was most useful to their desires. So the pathways and analytics team are going to really be responsible for the kind of what I call overarching strategies or pathways. These are more informed by detailed knowledge of carbon emissions emerging from the various sources: residential, commercial, industrial, transportation, and waste disposal. So they're going to have a lot of interest in looking at sources of carbon emission, not spending as much time on doing some of the cost analysis, but really trying to provide a high-level approach, hopefully 2 or 3 sort of high-level strategies, all of which could potentially meet our target. So, you know, they will develop these strategies. Each of these strategies will have specific elements that are detailed enough to be analyzed by folks in some of the other teams that are conducive to looking at how the municipal would implement them, but also how those potentially could get funded and have some cost benefit analyses done. So that's the goal of the Pathways and Analytics team. So the next team, the community engagement team, is really, it's going to ensure the public remains informed on the status of the plan and has adequate opportunity to comment and shape its development. We'll ensure the borough provides all the social media sources at its disposal to help, obviously, with that task. And some of the specific things, some of these are actually called out in the resolution. We're looking for the community engagement team to make sure that in our cost benefit analysis, we're addressing issues of racial and socioeconomic equity. We love our beautiful borough and we care about aesthetics. We want it to be fair, and we want it to be an economic driver for our community, and we want that to be done to share the benefits across the borough. And so in developing some of these criteria, we see the community engagement team is going to submit things that when we do cost benefit analysis, the projects and estimates team are going to have to incorporate into those decisions matrices. So the projects and estimates team is primarily responsible for doing sort of the specific cost benefit analyses in support of the alternatives that are handed over to them from Pathways and Analytics team. So they'll be given, economic efficiency will be a high priority, but they're also going to incorporate some of the criteria from the community engagement team. So we will need folks to be able to do some cost projections, some schedule estimates, and do a little bit of data mining and working with our partners. I've happy to say that I have some agreements from PPL, our utility provider, electricity utility provider for our service area, who wants to be part of this project, and they have. We've already started getting some by name representatives from those teams. So I would envision, folks who are working in this team to be working closely with those partners, and not just PPL, but obviously we'd like to have all of our energy partners, UGI, companies that are doing energy efficiency, and even some of our local state officials. And so the last team is the zoning team. So their primary responsibility is to take those elements coming from the pathways and analytics team and help make determinations about how or if they can be implemented under municipal authority. So that includes, but isn't limited to, zoning laws and borough zoning ordinances, but they're going to look at, whether changes to the subdivision, land development ordinances, the comprehensive plan, and other large strategic planning documents, looking at the feasibility from that perspective. And in that sense, they'll be doing a lot of parallel work with the projects and estimates team as we envision it. And so we actually have some partners already at Widener Law School who are developing some draft ordinances that reflect, in this case, some issues with looking at transportation and parking. I'm very interested in getting the zoning team matched with those students and that group, but that would be an example of another partner that the zoning team will be working with. And so that's a high-level overview. Hopefully, and I hope you're interested, that might give you a little bit more of a flavor of where you might see yourself fitting in. I want to reiterate, to help sort of help us quickly maybe get you assigned to a team that makes the most sense. We do have an online survey. I'll actually show you a link. Our squad at the Borough did a great job of getting all this online. So I'll direct you to where you can find all of this information as soon as this presentation is over. But please, I hope you find time to fill out the survey tonight. If you're interested in being a team lead, we have 4 team leads available, and we have we're going to have a little bit of a screening process. We want to make sure that people have the time commitments that sort of we feel they're going to be commensurate with executing those duties. So there's an application on the Borough website if you think you might have interest in being a team lead. I will say, in all cases, I hope everyone fills out a survey, whether or not you're interested in also applying for a team lead. And some frequently asked questions. Do I have to be a Borough resident to be a member of the commission? No, you don't. Any person can participate. When will each team be meeting? I can't answer that question yet, because we are going to give a lot of discretion to the team leads to sort of set up how often and when they meet. So we don't have exactly that much detail about, I would say if you're interested in volunteering, you should probably expect at least one meeting a month, depending on where we are in the schedule, maybe a couple times a month, just as a reference point. What if I'm not sure what team I should join? Again, I think we have a survey that's really going to help direct you to a team and get things going quickly. When will the team leads be chosen? We're going to go through our standard process as we do on all of our boards and commissions, and hopefully we'll be able to announce those shortly after the 24 September deadline. So maybe by October we will hit the clock, and the clock will start on our 12-month period. So that would, October 1st, I guess why not? A new fiscal year, good time to start a project. So those were all all my sort of scripted presentation, but I wanted to leave plenty of time, and it looks like we do, just to open it up and answer questions. But the last thing I wanted to do before I did that was just show everybody that if you go to our boards and commissions page, we now have a Climate Action Commission there. You can click on it, and you'll see the that directs the tasks and makeup of the commission, but you'll also see the survey here that will help us get you placed in the right group. If you are interested in being a team lead, boom, there you go. You go to volunteer openings. We got position descriptions for the 4 team leads, and take a look at those, and we hope that we can get our talented community interest. I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to open it up for, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just open it up for any questions or comments, and I'll do the best I can to answer them.
I had a quick question. This is Mohammed Benisi, just to kick things off, Joel. So you mentioned that, obviously there's the different missions of the teams, and it seems like a very well thought out structure. In terms of what they'll produce and where it goes, like for example, the zoning team clearly makes sense. Obviously there's an entire zoning office and a zoning function that's already, part of the borough. I mean, is it that we are presenting findings and sort of guidance that will then be processed through some of those channels that'll be part of the discussion of other parts of the borough that are already acting, doing their existing jobs? I'm just curious to know how that interface will work.
Good question. Thanks, Mohammed. I think it'll be a mix. I think a lot of the elements that are coming out of our strategy team, if you will, are going to be probably looking at some feasibility things that we're not traditionally doing right now, that some cities and municipalities may be doing, but probably looking at looking at new types of zoning ordinances as opposed to sort of tweaking the ones that we have. I think that part of that will be part of what they'll need to be doing is exploratory, because if you've seen how different cities have approached altering their zoning laws, they some of them can get pretty creative, and that's a challenge. So we're looking at sort of you can imagine fundamentally kind of shifting our infrastructure. I mean, just think of transportation. By 2050, we're primarily going to be fueled by alternative fuel vehicles, and you look around Carlisle, and I don't see a lot of charging stations. So we have a lot of homes here that don't have garages. How are we going to power them? So I think it will be a mix, Mohammed, of sort of adjusting some of the things we have now. Put it. How could rooftop solar or things like that be permitted under our existing sorts of codes? That's why I think pulling, hopefully I'm hoping those who have either served on the Planning Commission or the zoning hearing boards, or currently are, and who want to do more volunteering, will be interested in doing this. So did that answer your question?
it does. And that seems like an easier path too. That we're sort of investigating, finding, not dictating anything, not demanding anything. It's just sort of that sounds great.
Okay, good, good. A couple questions. Have you engaged the Clean Air Board? I can say I've reached out to a couple of members to make them aware of what we're doing, and I don't know if anyone from there is on tonight, but I do hope that I can entice one or more members to be part of this effort. I mean, I think most of the people on here probably understand as important as carbon mitigation is to our planet and our environment. I mean, the co-benefits that come with carbon reductions and other benefits of cleaner air, which are really relevant to us here so close to the interstate, are profound. And so I would expect we're going to lean on the Clean Air Board to provide some information that will help us value the reductions of other types of pollutants to help us with our decisions. So somebody asked, can you discuss why sinks are not included with sources? I wouldn't mind the gentleman who wrote that to maybe clarify. I'm not sure what that means.
Can you repeat that? I didn't hear exactly what you said.
Someone asked, can you discuss why sinks are not included with sources? And I'm not sure what that is referring exactly to, but
I think they're talking about carbon sinks in addition to carbon emissions, like so carbon sequestration or other natural carbon.
Oh, right. No, I think you're right, Mohammed. Thank you. So no, I had no intention of sort of leading us to think that necessarily our targets can only be reduced by changing generation sources, because carbon sequestration is a viable option, and eventually we are going to have to be able to take some of the current carbon in the atmosphere out, even if we were to eliminate all carbon today. So we are going to have to figure out cost-effective sinks, but if it makes sense and there is a generation source that can or a carbon sink that can suppress carbon that we inventory coming from us, then that all counts.
Joel, this is Neil Leary. I could respond to this a little bit as well.
Oh, hey, Neil. Yeah, please do.
Yeah, so in doing the inventory of greenhouse gas emissions for Carlisle, we followed a protocol that comes from, it's called the U.S. Community Protocol. There's an organization that ICLEI sort of spells out how you do this. Emissions from land use or sinks from land, carbon being absorbed in land, is not typically part of the greenhouse gas inventories that people do with ICLEI. Part of that is usually they're dealing with urban communities, places that for which the either emissions from land uses or sinks into land uses are not a major factor. Joel mentioned that the county is about to do their own inventory and start a climate action planning process. And for that, we're looking at whether we might include the emissions from land and agriculture as well. It's not easy to do. It requires spatially specific GIS data, and so it'll be a bit of a challenge. We're going to work with Shippensburg University's Land Institute to help do that. For Carlisle, thinking about sinks, things within our jurisdiction, the amount of carbon we could actually sequester to offset our emissions from energy and other activities is going to be relatively small compared to our nearly 250,000 tons of CO2 emissions equivalent. When we're looking at a county, there's a lot more opportunity for sinks. And so Carlisle could be thinking about, are there policies, activities we could do that could encourage land uses outside of the borough on lands that could act as sinks and somehow could be credited to the borough as helping to reduce our footprint.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Yeah, I think some places call those offsets. Yeah, I think that's certainly within the realm of looking at. Any other? Let's see. Any other questions?
Hey, Joel, I have just two observations just of the way that you presented it, and maybe I'll get some clarification, and also if folks are listening and thinking of applying, just to make sure that it was maybe absorbed properly. But the 4 different commissions, or the 4 different subsets, the first one, Pat, the way it was presented seemed like most of the initiative comes from that, and the other 3 kind of work after it. So the zoning comes later, yet there could be some folks in the zoning that really could drive the, where we're starting from. So I think that just maybe is a little bit hard to figure out where the structure is. And so folks who really want to lead the charge might feel like they want to go into the first one, but they might actually be more impactful in zoning depending on what the actual power, I don't know, is in that. And the other thing that you did mention, and it kind of goes back to the question of, did we engage the Clean Air Board? There's gonna be lots of organizations that I think that we could reach out to, but the one thing that I brought up before when we were talking about this, and it's in there, is, the racial and socioeconomic focus to ensure that we have representation. So it doesn't mean that that we will simply just go with completely who applies. I think that there will be some importance in seeking perspectives and voices that maybe aren't there initially, and trying to reach out to folks. So some folks are educated in particular areas, like Neil could answer that question and I couldn't answer that question. So we need the Neils. But at the same time, there's folks in Carlisle that have lived next to tire factories, and they know what it's like to have these types of places in their community. And so the personal and lived experience perspective is also important when we're looking at, and you said about cost, to make sure that things don't just rise in costs, and we aren't thinking about how it actually will affect people in the community. So I think that those are things that we say, but we really need to embody that with who represents us on these different groups, to ensure that we have the perspectives from a range of folks. So that was sort of my question on clarifying the different groups, and then just observationally that I think we will continue to seek out to ensure that we have a good balance of folks on these.
Thanks for, Brenda, there is a bit of a synchronous dance that's going to go on. Yeah, and I'll just say 2 things. I think we'll probably need some pretty firm products coming out of the Pathways and Analytics team early on. But I will say in the meantime, both with the community engagement, I mean, starting October 1st, I expect the lead for that team to really be creative and making sure that we're getting input and, from everywhere in our community. I mean, we have the Widener law students already writing draft ordinances. I mean, we have the zoning people, we need to get them going and directing their work immediately. So, but you're right. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of a flow across teams. I'll probably be personally spending, maybe a little bit more time with the Pathways team early on, because we really want to be comfortable with the overall strategy before we start doing some more in-depth analysis. But yeah, I appreciate that. I feel confident we're going to have work for all the groups right away, but I can't say it'll be even flow for all the groups for 12 months, and that's just sort of the way the process happens. I will say this structure, which we talked a little bit about, it is not too unlike a military structure where they have a strategy, a planning, and an ops team. That was sort of my thinking about how the work, the flow kind of transitions to. So I think as long as we keep, all the groups know what and when that we need output from them, we're going to keep everyone busy. I don't see any other questions on the chat line, but anybody have any questions? We do not have to stay here an hour, and I know a few of us have a few more hours tonight. But any other questions or even comments? This is a somewhat we don't have a lot of sort of standing committees, special commissions, so really willing to spend as much time to kind of help folks understand what we're trying to do.
You have one in the chat. Like, you got one question that just came in.
Yeah. I will. I'll say I'm going to give team leads a lot of discretion about who's on their team.
Hey, Joel, can you repeat the question so everyone knows what it says for anyone watching?
Yeah. Will everyone have opportunities to work with other teams, or will it be passing the ball from one team to another? I'm certainly not interested in keeping someone who wants to work across teams from doing that. I do want to give the team leads the discretion to, decide who is a, formal person on their team. But if somebody has the time and desire to work across teams, I don't have a problem with that. And if the team leads, want to incorporate someone from another team, I have no issues with that. And the products and information that happens in one team, that'll be, these aren't throwing things, it won't be throwing things over the wall. Everybody will have some visibility into what the other teams are doing. Again, my intent is to really try to keep people focused in an area they're interested in, because I think they're going to do better work, and I think they're going to be more motivated to do that.
I've got a question about what kind of support the borough and the commission can offer for folks who do volunteer their time. Is there like an option? Obviously, if this is not like a fiscally compensated role, but would there be like access to a pro Zoom account, or like resources to print out a lot of surveys to put in people's mailboxes, or like what's the situation in terms of resources to support whatever awesome ideas and plans we all come up with on the different teams?
Good question, Ms. Clark. We have not set aside discretionary funds to support this commission yet, but I feel confident to a reasonable amount. Like if it for advertising, for Zoom, if you're a team lead and you want to hold virtual meetings and that costs something to do, I'll certainly, as one council member, go to bat to support a reasonable request. I have no interest in leaving financial burdens to people who are volunteering for reasonable requests to do your job. So yeah, we're open to that, but we haven't set aside an equipment or a specific budget for that. But certainly willing to entertain it. Oh, and I'll mention we do have access to some templates and modeling tools through a registration, a subscription to ICLEI. That's going to help at least one of our teams develop some of their modeling. But there are some other tools that are available that I think will be of use to community engagement team and potentially some other teams. So we would be able to share the products that come with our membership to in this case the ICLEI suite of tools. And ICLEI is a third-party group that works with local governments to develop climate action plans. So, let's see, any other questions?
So Joel, I have a comment to share coming back to the targets that the borough has set to give people some kind of sense of how challenging, how difficult they are. There's a good news, bad news aspect to it. So the first target of 26% reduction by the year 2025 sounds pretty challenging. 2025 is very near. But we did also, when we did the inventory for the year 2017, we then also constructed one for the year 2005. So that 26% reduction is relative to what emissions were in 2005. That was done to match the state's plan, and it also matches, in a sense, the Paris Agreement, the International Agreement on Climate Change. Between 2005 and 2017, emissions of greenhouse gases in Carlisle went down by 17%, right? So we have made, without a plan, and by virtue of basically what's going on there is a couple things. One is, and this is the smaller effect, is vehicles are more fuel efficient in 2017 than they were in 2005. So the estimates that we came up with for emissions from transportation were down by some amount. And then also, and this was a bigger part of it, is that our region of Pennsylvania used a lot more fossil fuel for electricity in 2005 than in 2017. And so that reduced our emissions. But that, that has gotten us a long ways towards that 2025 goal. And so it's not going to be easy to get to the 26% reduction, but I think it's well within the realm of what we can do with reasonable measures, things that should not be burdensome. I give pause to this 80% reduction by the year 2050. It's necessary. We all have to, figure out how to get there. There's a lot of potential for, innovation, changes that can happen between now and then. But that's the part where, particularly like zoning issues, zoning changes aren't going to have an impact that much by 2025. But that's the kind of strategy that will be, those kinds of measures can really affect what our world looks like in the year 2050.
Yeah, here. From most experts I hear from, the last 20% is the hardest, and which kind of makes sense. I'll reiterate that, if you remember, the main contributor right now is in Carlisle Borough is commercial and industrial energy. Residential's there, transportation's there, but almost 50% of our energy is from commercial and industrial, even here in our borough. So we're really going to need to be working with our utility providers. They have to be partners. We're not gonna meet our targets unless the PPLs of the world and UGIs of the world are working with us. So we really are going to need the voices and help from our business community.
Joel, if I could jump in just to address a couple of comments. One, I think we'll definitely be able to provide Zoom for the teams, so that will be there. I think we ought to make these meetings as public as possible. We want to be transparent and have discussion. We don't know where good ideas may come from, so we want to make sure that our teams can take advantage of folks in the community who may only be able to attend a meeting or two here and there. Back to Brenda's consciously put the phrase in about racial and socioeconomic equity, not just in the output of the plan, but in making sure that we have a commission that's representative of those goals in the end also. So I think we're well positioned, and I think we'll see probably some fluidity in the commission and in perhaps volunteers, working with different teams.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean. I would also just like to mention that Deputy Mayor Schultz is going to be on the executive committee, so I'm very glad to have his brain going to be part of it, as if he didn't have enough free time. But yeah, thanks for his willingness to step up. And I don't know if our borough manager, Susan, would you like to say anything? Or
I would just like to say that, I think it's exciting times where, I think I speak for our staff. We're actually looking forward to the challenge and engaging with the community on this level, and just glad to be part of it. So I would suggest that anyone that has questions regarding the issue, feel free to reach out to us, the manager's office, or of course, Councilor Hicks and Deputy Mayor Schultz, easily accessible as well. So, but certainly, I do envision that there will be support staff as well available to this commission, as with any other commission. For example, our Human Relations Commission, they actually operate with very, we don't necessarily have a budget for them, but we provide a lot of support staff, and if there's pamphlets that need printed, etc., whatever we can do, we try to manage in-house. But and we've been able to really advance the objectives of like the HRC through just use of in-house staff. So I hope that eases some concerns as well.
Yeah, and thank you, Susan. I wanted to also echo what Deputy Mayor Schultz said. We're not going to be a slave to the process. The process works for us, and if we need to change things, we're going to change things. I think we're all comfortable with the way things are structured, the way we're approaching it. Another comment, this work involves difficult work with a constellation of complex systems. Are there any standard systems thinking tools or approaches or training or standardized across the team to focus our efforts? Well, we have folks who are going to be helping who have been working with some of the modeling tools that we have access to. So we're not starting from nothing, but it is going to be incumbent on the executive committee to be very clear and precise about responsibilities. And one of the reasons we wanted the team leads, I would go so far as to say the primary reason we wanted the team leads to be on the executive committee is to sort of overcome that sort of, working in your own silo problem is that every team lead is at every executive committee meeting. And so hopefully that's going to minimize any potential misunderstandings that could otherwise occur. I also want to echo, something that's important. If you read 12 climate action plans, you're going to get 13 different approaches. They all really represent something unique about their community, and some places, have resources where they can, hire consultants. Some places have 2 people working, in a closet for, 4 months, and the product reflects best efforts, right? And I'll say I wouldn't have volunteered to do this if I didn't think we were going to have the potential to have a really excellent plan. But at the end of the day, it's going to be our best effort, and it's going to be a lot better than we have now, and it's going to really inform some of our important future capitalization and zoning development. So, and our comprehensive plan. So, I'm going to challenge everyone to aim high, but understand we're the product's going to be our own standard, not anybody else's. And I look forward to what we can accomplish in 12 months. Are there any practices that other communities have followed successfully? Actually, great question. So I mentioned that Dickinson worked with the borough for almost a year on developing the greenhouse gas inventory as part of the LCAP program, but we also had the luxury of developing some documents. We have a community engagement plan that I think Neil can agree that is really, really a great starting point for whoever's going to be working on the community engagement team. We have a great starting point for how to engage the community. And we do actually have some, yeah, absolutely. We have best practices. Our membership to ICLEI, which everybody who's working on this project will have, provides a lot of that information, about best practices for doing different elements of a climate action plan. So we're going to adhere to those as best as we can. So yeah, good question, Margaret.
Hey, Joel, this is Neil Leary again. So related to both of those the questions about how we get our heads around these complex systems and best practices, it might be useful for the community engagement team to be thinking about what kinds of information, resources, materials that already exist could be used to help educate ourselves and the wider community about some real basic things about climate change, real basic things about where do emissions of greenhouse gases come from, what are some of the sort of, just conceptually what the strategies are. So there'll be a team that will be looking in detail about the technicalities of strategies, but just to kind of help everybody get a sense of like, well, what does it mean to have a climate action plan that addresses transportation emissions? Like, what does that look like? So if that group could maybe be looking for, we probably don't have to create them. There are probably some good resources out there that have been used to communicate these issues to the general public. So I think that could be a high priority for the community engagement team for starting off.
Yeah, good observation, Neil. And as you know, we have some advocacy groups and some interest groups, environmental interest groups who are creating a series of climate action forum to educate and do this sort of orienting and educating our residents to what the sources and potential externalities, negative externalities that come with warming planet and being in a state that is getting increasing amounts of rain and is getting warmer. we're starting to actually be able to measure those effects. These are not theoretical. These are very measurable, and we have to remind folks that we actually do know a lot about the effect that it's having on our climate, and we're going to need to, this is an all hands on deck mission. We're going to need everybody helping with that.
Joe, this is Hans Pfister. I'm a physics professor at the college, and I teach the course on renewable energy. And we were talking a moment ago, this is a steep goal, but I think it is doable. And what's really on our side and in our favor is wind energy. Wind energy at this moment is cheaper than it's ever been, ever in my life. And since we have wind energy, for example, I have a window open right now. This is Clean Sky Energy, has a price of 3.2 cents per kilowatt hour, when at the same time Med-Ed is 5.3. So if your bill is normally $160 for fossil fuel energy, it is now $97. So my wife and I are presently saving about $50 every month. It used to be, $10 in the first, this is our 10th year on wind energy. And the first few years, we paid a little extra, $5, $6 extra, but now it really is significantly cheaper. And so that price differential is really in our favor. Yeah. And I think many people in Carlisle, once they know that wind energy is so much cheaper, will switch to wind energy.
I think you're talking about the ability to use the PA power switch to choose.
Yes, that's the,
right. Like it's important to know, a lot of people may not be aware that being in a retail state, Pennsylvania, every person can choose their own provider. There are some barriers and challenges why people don't, who might even want to buy clean energy, is they have to keep remembering to, and these are real barriers that we need to talk to our service providers, PPL. Right. What can you do to help us allow the people whose preferences are to do X to actually allow them to do that easily? There's a lot of empirical research to suggest removing small barriers can really change behavior. And you give a good example. So yeah, it's knowledge to let people know they can save money, but it's also how can you reduce the barriers to make it easier for people to do what their stated preferences are. But yeah, good point, Hans. See, switch party. Yeah. So Mohammed is reminding us that a lot of what we're talking about is what I policy geeks would call information asymmetries, right? We have to overcome information asymmetries, and what Hans and Mohammed are talking about are classic examples. Another one that just happened, it's really quite obvious to me today, is that we have $1 million from Pennsylvania DEP that are going to small businesses to put energy efficient equipment in. Well, guess what? The people paying the bills aren't the people who decide where the energy efficient equipment goes. It's called a principal agent problem. We have to figure out ways of overcoming these things so that people have the right incentives to make these great subsidies that are available, that they actually make sense. So I echo like a lot of people. There's not a silver bullet. There's not a silver bullet to this problem. It's a lot of different things that we're going to have to do to reach our goals. So we're closing in at 6:30. This was exactly what I was hoping we get out of an hour. Great questions. you know how to get a hold of me if you have any other questions or comments. So we're going to spend a couple weeks, hopefully filling out the commission leads and getting people sort of penciled into a team. Please fill out a survey, even if you're not. It's not a commitment. We're not going to hunt you down if you fill out a survey and you change your mind. Please, it'll help us stay in contact with you to get at least kind of put you on a distribution list at a minimum, so you can stay engaged until you figure out how you want to get involved. So with that, I will wish everyone a great evening. I may see a few of you in an hour or less, and close it out for tonight. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.